Welcome to GLOW 2025. Get ready for the global learning for an open-world virtual conference, where global innovation truly meets inspiration, shaping the future of education. Our mission at GLOW is clear and impactful. Our virtual gathering promotes sustainable development through transformative education. GLOW 2025 offers a platform for educators, researchers, policymakers, and learners worldwide to explore actionable strategies for global competencies, intercultural communication, and innovative teaching methodologies. We share actionable ideas that make learning more connected, compassionate, and future-ready for all. Prepare to be inspired by our exceptional keynote speakers. Meet our visionary educators and leaders, poised to inspire transformation. Connect with organizations that can help take your classroom global. Our presenters are inspiring change and innovation around the world, from Spain to South Africa to India to Australia to Argentina and across the United States. We have a special highlight for you today with our featured speakers courtesy of the Institute for Humane Education. Join us for our special GLOW Preview webinar, featuring Zoe Weil from the Institute for Humane Education in conversation with Christian Long of Bonfire Workshop, sharing how compassion and purpose can shape a thriving world. Let's explore the dynamic and flexible GLOW conference experience. Participate in 2 inspiring days of live sessions, interactive workshops, and on-demand replays designed to fit any time zone. Choose a free pass for live sessions or go premium for full recording access and extended learning opportunities. Discover the heart of GLOW 2025 through its powerful themes and global impact. We even have a special track for Spanish language attendees. Together, we're reimagining education for a sustainable, innovative, and compassionate world. Making a difference, one connection at a time. We can't wait to see you at GLOW 2025. We appreciate the support of these leading global education organizations. Please visit their booths during the conference to learn more about their programs and opportunities. They are eager to connect with you. Register today for GLOW. It is free to attend live sessions. If you would like access to recordings and other benefits, a promo code is available for paid tickets. See you online soon.
And we're live. Welcome everyone to our GLOW preview webinar. I'm really excited to have 2 friends with us tonight who are going to have a great conversation. And hopefully this will get you excited about our upcoming global conference that's happening November 19th and 20th. This is the kind of, one of the primary goals of this conference is to help others find connections with others and projects, initiatives, organizations, and people. And these are Christian Long and Zoe Weil have been exemplars in that area. I've known Christian for, I don't know how many years now, Christian. I think it's been, I think we first met on a blogging platform many years ago when that was all new and exciting. And Zoe has been a supporter of our conference for several years now too. And so I welcome you, and I hope that you will introduce yourselves and share a little bit about your work and what you've been up to the last couple of years. I'm so excited to introduce these phenomenal educators to our GLOW community. If you are a GLOW presenter or please say hello in the chat. Anyone can say hello in the chat, but I would love to hear if we have GLOW presenters in the chat as well. And we'll talk a little bit about the conference at the end of this conversation. So without further ado, thank you so much for being here, both of you. And I can't wait to learn from your wisdom this evening.
Thank you, Lucy.
Lucy, really appreciate you. Appreciate the invitation.
Zoe, I am delighted to be back with you. This is very selfish for me that I just get to be with you. And lots of ways that we can introduce the work that you do, but I'll just put a little plug for something you and I share beyond that. You and I hold Maine in our hearts and in our bodies. You were fortunate enough to stay there long term. I have spent many years just joyful to get back when I can. But how do you enjoy describing the work you do? Like when you really say it in a way that you just feel great in that moment, how do you actually describe your work in IHE?
So before I answer that, it is a joy to be with you. We haven't seen each other in way too many years. And so thank you. It's funny, I actually described the work I do today because I was speaking at Brewer High School. You remember Brewer High School. You probably played against them.
They were competitors.
Yeah. And so I was speaking to some of the high school students today. They were interested in what is humane education. And I'm the co-founder of the Institute for Humane Education. And I describe our work as trying to build a society, a world that is peaceful and just and humane for everyone, for people, for animals, for the environment. That's what I get to do every day, is to help build that world through education. And what I was telling the students today is, as we try to think about how we can make the systems in our world, in our societies, more equitable, more compassionate, more sustainable, I talked a little bit about those systems, systems like production systems, food systems, energy systems, transportation systems, political systems, economic systems, or all these systems. And I work in the education system. And what's different about the education system, it's not just one system among all these many systems. It is the root system lying at the root of all of them. And so that's what I'm trying to influence and change.
Well, thank you. I think anyone just watching this, listening to you, just knows there's joy in that answer, like how you come across as you describe the calling and service in many respects. So two things that I've always appreciated about the work you lead, the work you're involved in, and also what it represents is there is a non-negotiable relationship between we as human beings, the natural environment around us, and living creatures of all varieties. And that those aren't just important to consider, but it is impossible to imagine that collective relationship not existing. And in many respects, what you and IHE do is that you ensure that we keep that like at the heart of everything, right? It's not just, let me be thoughtful about the environment, let me be, an advocate or an ally for a critter I love, or let's be better humans. It's like we start with a connection. Would you just say a little bit about that? Because that's my interpretation, but it's what I've always carried with me since first meeting you.
Yes. So I think one of the things that distinguishes humane education in general and the Institute for Humane Education in particular is this value of all life forms, that there's human rights education, there's environmental education, there's all these different kinds of education. Humane education insists that we consider everyone as we are learning about how we can live more ethically in our societies and on our planet. And humane education is really the only umbrella form of education that says people, animals, and ecosystems all matter. And it's new for people because we're so human-centric. It was really interesting to me. Yesterday, I read the memo that Bill Gates wrote recently about climate change, and it's been in the news because he was talking about how climate change, while a big issue is secondary to the issues of poverty and the issues of how we uplift people across the globe. And as you read the whole memo, he makes important and good points, but what he leaves out is that the environment itself, the planet itself, the other species with whom we share it actually matter. That climate change, he's arguing that climate change isn't quite the most important thing. We really need to address this other issue of poverty first. And that's just not the way humane educators think. We see the interrelations and we look at how can we uplift everything at once, knowing that there are going to be conflicts, obviously, that arise between people in the environment, between people and other species. That always happens.
Of course.
But how can we think in this comprehensive way? That's what's different.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you and I to imagine that we're together in Maine, not just to celebrate that beautiful state, but just because it is a way that I learned to appreciate what you just hinted at in a way that wasn't intellectual. And so I want to imagine that the ideal way that we would be having this conversation with everybody that's attending or may watch in future is we would all be on a path, and we would start on your property in Surrey, Maine, sits on the mainland outside of Acadia National Park and kind of between Bangor and Acadia, not literally, but roughly. And we would be on a path. Perhaps we would be in the meadow right outside of where IHE campus sort of is and your private home, which all, situate next to each other with one another. Maybe we'd be in the meadow and kind of know that over this way would be forest and then behind that would be coast. Maybe we'd be in the forest itself. Maybe we would just be stepping out onto a rocky shoreline. I don't know where we would be, but my ideal would be all of us would be there with you and that you would lead us through something called a wonder walk. And the reason I'm bringing a wonder walk up is because I think it's easy for me to want to really wrestle with the intellectual, to really parse terms and really make sure I get it so I don't say it badly. But I didn't really understand it, even as a board member of IHE, until I went on a wonder walk with you and started to feel something more than I was understanding something. So would you just conjure it up? You're a very visual person, incredible photographer. You are just magic in magic places. Would you describe what a wonder walk is? And would you perhaps even give us a hint of how somebody experiences one or what you hope they experience? And then I've got a follow-up.
Yes. And I so remember taking you on a wonder walk. And I even remember the moment where I brought you to the rhododendrons in full bloom and the bumblebees were all over the rhododendrons. And I remember talking to you afterwards about your wife's allergies to bees. And it changed my, I have to be careful when I wonder walk people.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So a wonder walk. And I took a teacher on a wonder walk today. So this is a little side note, but when I got to Brewer High School, we had been doing solutionary work with Brewer High School, training a number of their teachers. And as part of their training, they were given a copy of the book, The World Becomes What We Teach, which is a book that I wrote. And this teacher, he's the outdoor educator and the shop educator, the woodworking educator. He made a point of coming over from his outdoor shop where he was working with students to tell me that he's not a reader. He hadn't read a book since college. And he read The World Becomes What We Teach, not once, but twice. And he said that I was in his head, this was what he believed. So after I gave the talk to the high school students, I went out to find him to take him on a wonder walk.
Fantastic.
So, and it's because of what you just said, the wonder walk is visceral, it's experiential, and it's designed to awaken our senses, our connection to the natural world, to not just think intellectually about what's happening on our planet, but to connect viscerally with our beautiful planet. So in the Wonder Walk, people pair up, and one person is the leader and one person is led. And the person who is led closes their eyes. And the leader takes them by the hand in a way that makes them feel secure and carefully walks them around a natural setting to introduce them through their senses to the natural world. So if you want somebody to see something, you might position their head. Like today, I lifted this teacher's head up so he was looking at the colorful leaves, 2 different trees that one was yellow leaved and one was red leaved. And then you tap next to their eye, and that's the message to open your eyes. And it's as if when that happens, you're seeing the world for the very first time. And then you could put something in somebody's hands or put their hands on something. So after I did that with the tree, I moved him and I put his hands on the trunk of the tree. You can position somebody and tap their nose to smell. You can touch their earlobe to hear. Could be bird song, could be the wind rustling through the trees as it was with him. And if it's safe, you can tap next to somebody's mouth and put something in their mouth. But you have to make sure that you really know what you're putting in their mouth, and they have to have given you permission in case they have allergies of some sort. So that's the Wonder Walk. And what happens, I have had, and I said a natural area, but I have done this in downtown Philadelphia, in downtown Toronto, in Guadalajara, Mexico. I have done it in big cities. You don't need much. You just, I mean, honestly, like a little plant growing through the cracks in concrete is life-changing for people if they notice it for the first time. And what happens to people, and I've seen it happen in moments. I did it with one woman in downtown Philadelphia with a window box that had some flowers in it. And her heart just burst open. And I think it's this, first of all, it's an intimate thing to hold somebody by the hand with their eyes closed. So there's that human connection with somebody. And when kids do this with each other, it is just so beautiful to see. And then it's just really sinking in to an awareness of our senses. That's the description.
It's a pretty wonderful one. I do remember thinking about, in some respects, I was in a place that I had already visualized, had already walked a little bit, but the experience wouldn't have happened if I didn't trust, let go, whatever that means to somebody, just to put my trust in another living being. Right? It's very subtle, but it's extraordinary. And to allow them to position, to reorient me, right? In some respects, these conversations about the interrelated connections of an ecosystem, like all of the parts of an ecosystem, that we aren't the dominant, but we are of it. The only way to get there is to have a reorientation, because in some respects, we have to see it, feel it, sense it in ways we have never. But also, when I think about what you just shared, you're gifting somebody a chance to return to what was already there. And whether it's like in the operating system of a living creature or in the gut biome of our own digestive tract, or the soil that is, the conditions by which all things grow, or et cetera. So, but I'm really reminded of what happens when you allow somebody to help you reorient. And it's both the noticing, the wondering, the sort of momentary awe, the momentary just like, whatever that is, but it's also connected to letting go of things. And I don't know if there's a question there, but I'm remembering that there was a spirit of the moment, as much as there was the texture or the senses making sense of in the moment. Would you connect what you already shared, and so you can emphasize any and all parts of that, would you connect that to your solutionary concept, kind of the pedagogical framework of solutionary education, the idea of I am a solutionary, whatever, when somebody sort of like owns that language? What is the connection between something that is as simple and beautiful and almost quaint as a Wonder Walk with these larger, grander, like matters.
Yeah.
Of solutionary with a capital S. Would you kind of now make that connection? But I just wanted to linger on the sensations that you offer so many people when they really experience it.
So one of the connections is curiosity and wonder and awe and love. That's four things, not one thing, but they're all connected. And so we are seeing more biophobia among young people and adults. More than half of all people on the planet now live in big cities. Even in places like Maine, where I live and where you grew up, people are scared now to go outside in the summer because of the ticks. Like we have a lot of ticks now, which wasn't the case when you grew up here. So it's really important that we care enough about our beautiful planet and the other species who live here that we have any real interest or engagement in trying to ensure that our planet is regenerative. Most of us, not all of us, but most of us are more deeply inclined to protect and care for who and what we love.
Yes.
For some people, justice is enough. But when we love, we'll die for those we love, right? I think about how readily I threw myself on top of my son when I heard a tree in the rainforest like cracking and about to fall, as if my body would have saved him from a fallen tree. But it was just instinctual because I love him. And I think we need to fall in love with this planet, or many of us. Again, I don't want to say like you have to love, the planet in order to protect the planet. It's not that simple, but we're more inclined. So it's that nurturing of wonder and curiosity and awe and love that is part of the motivation to want to even be a solutionary. So I think I need to define solutionary for people because it is a made up word, but people have a sense right away of what it means. But it's not synonymous with a problem solver. And the reason why we needed this made up word is, and by the way, even though it was made up, all words were made up, and now it's used widely around the world. So I shouldn't keep calling it a made up word. It's just solutionary. Why do we need this word? So you can solve the problem of damming a river or blowing up a mountaintop for coal removal, and you're a problem solver, but you're not a solutionary. Because embedded in the definition of the word solutionary is an ethical imperative. So the definition is somebody who can identify unjust, unsustainable, inhumane systems and transform them in ways that do the most good and the least harm for people, animals, and the environment. So that concept of doing the most good and the least harm to people, animals, and the environment is the ethical principle that undergirds this concept of being a solutionary. The other thing a solutionary is not a humanitarian. Now, they may also be a humanitarian, hopefully they are, but a humanitarian, and hopefully we're seeing lots of humanitarians heading to Jamaica and Cuba and the Bahamas right now to help because there's been a terrible disaster with Hurricane Melissa. We need humanitarians. Humanitarians, though, are not looking at the systemic structures that cause the problems. Solutionaries are doing that. So is that your dog? It could have been mine, except I'm a few rooms away. So that definition is important for people to remember. Looking at the causes of problems, solving them at the systemic or root cause level, and doing so in a way that does the most good and the least harm. I think I'll pause there in case you want to get me on track for.
Well, no, I don't want to at all. There's so many things you just shared. And I love that in the midst of this, to wonderful hounds who know nothing other than the thing that they're most attracted to, had a presence, and it would have been foolish to be disappointed with them. We'll just calmly mute. And but no, you certainly. I don't want to redirect. So let me share two things that you're making me think about now or be curious about. One is you kind of set the scene earlier with the importance of curiosity, and we could use lots of words for that. But let's just say the disposition to be curious is central. Like, it's not just getting the right answer and being dutiful, it's actually having that. And two, there is this explicit and implied question about love. And I love that, because so often we don't take on the wicked questions of our age, or we don't step into the difficult work and also recognize that our ability to love, to care, to be like all in is often part of our journey there as a person. But I like that you've made a very clear distinction that one doesn't have to love the planet to be a solutionary, to do work that matters, right? It can be a really appropriate, important. But I do value that if there is a condition for curiosity, and if our ability to feel a connection, whether it's love or something else, we're in a really interesting position to do work that matters, to do solutionary work that matters. But those are not prerequisites, but they just might be important. So I want to just say that you're making me think about that right now. The second thing that you're making me think about is the power of language and the importance of reframing it. That we have language in a place called school. In 2025, it is very, you cannot visit a modern day classroom where problem solving is not seen as one of like the core competencies. Mm-hmm. Critical thinking, problem solving, et cetera. It goes back, it's the roots of certainly Western education and most formal educations. And then we have language of like change agent or change maker. And it's almost like the language we use in a place called school is, we got to solve the problem, but also you have to change everything. You have to be. I don't hear you. It's not that kind of invitation. There's both a grandness and a thoughtfulness to it. So can you come back to solutionary? Let's imagine there's one student, one young person. She or he is curious about something out there, something in that ecosystem that you were talking about earlier. And she or he has some affinity, a leaning towards, a craving, a love, whatever it is. And now you're going to invite them on their solutionary journey. Mm-hmm. Would you take us to that moment, one young person who brings those things intuitively or has really defined them on their terms? Tell us how you invite that young person to start in their solutionary journey, or to be part of a solutionary experience, or if it's just a curricular moment inside a class. Like, would you just take us to one student, because I think that will help illuminate some other things that I'm curious about.
I will. And it's an interesting question. So having literally just given this talk today, this afternoon, coming back, making dinner, eating dinner, and coming here, that time with the students today is really present for me. And I think I'm going to answer your question in relationship to today's visit with them and introducing them to the solutionary concept.
Perfect.
So what I didn't do today is I didn't really take them through the solutionary framework. So at the Institute for Humane Education, we've developed a framework. It is a 4-phase process of identify a problem, investigate it thoroughly, innovate a solution, implement a solution. This is what we are training teachers. We have a solutionary micro-credential course, and we have teachers all over the world who have taken or are taking this course to be able to bring this framework to their students. That isn't what I talked about with the students today, because it wasn't the beginning of the journey. And you just asked about the beginning of the journey, that one girl or boy. Where do you start? So I'm going to tell you what I did with them.
Perfect.
And just know that on the other side of that is this rigorous valuable, useful, practical framework that any teacher can use and they can use in their setting. But I started off by asking the students if they thought that it was likely that in their lifetime, the world would become just and regenerative and healthy and humane and peaceful. And there were 20 kids there and nobody raised their hand. And this was in a gifted and talented program with really like dedicated kids. One student sort of raised his hand a little bit. Then I asked them to raise their hands if they thought the reverse, if they thought it was more likely that things were going to get, worse. And almost all of them raised their hands. And then there were some who just weren't sure. And then I said, I'm going to revisit this question at the very end of my time with you today. And I did. So then I asked them, tell me what you're concerned about. What are the issues you care about? And they had all the issues you can imagine, right? Like the ones that we all care about. They're concerned about democracy. They're concerned about division and polarization and human rights abuses and the environment. They're concerned about it all. And then I led them through a few stories and a few questions. And many of them were taking notes and they had their computers open and were typing things I was saying, even though they didn't have to, and I never asked them to. But I did say, I want you now to get out your notebooks, write or put it in your computer. I have 3 questions that I'm going to ask you. And these are questions for your life. And the first question was, what problems or issues in the world and in your life most concern you? The second question is, what do you love to do? The third question is, what are you good at? And I said, you're going to be answering these questions for the rest of your life. This isn't just like you don't know all the things you love to do. I don't know all the things I love to do. There's always new things. We don't know all the things we're good at. We know the things that school or society measure and tell us we're good at, but we could be good at so many different things. But what I said to them is, if you can find the place where the answers to these 3 questions meet, your life's golden because it's full of meaning and purpose and community and likely joy. And those 3 questions help them go on their solutionary journey. I shared with them one of my favorite things that Mahatma Gandhi ever said when asked by a reporter, what is your message? And it was on a day when he'd taken a vow of silence, because we know he had a big message. But on that day, he jotted down on a piece of paper, my life is my message. And I shared that with the students. And I said, your life is your message too. Each of our lives is our message. Are you going to live in a way where you're really living your message? And so I introduced them to the concept of the 3 I's of inquiry and introspection and integrity. So that goes along with the solutionary work. We need to bring that curiosity, inquire about the impacts of our choices, inquire about what we care about, learn more, and then introspect, and then put those together so that we can make choices to align our values with what we've learned so that we can live with integrity. So it was sort of all of these little things that I gave them, these sort of, I was trying to give them little drops of wisdom to prepare them for the solutionary journey, which is, vigorous, rigorous, fun, exhausting, engaging, infuriating, right? Like you're going to learn about, you're trying to change systems that they don't make any sense. Why do we set it up this way? This is crazy. Like they're going to be faced with that, but then they're also going to be able to narrow it down, look at a problem that they care about, work together, solve that problem, and go, okay, problems are solvable. But not just a math problem, something I really care about, I can solve. I'll stop there.
Well, I'm going to ask you to go back there. I just want to appreciate because right now in my mind, I'm picturing 20 young people, and I don't know the setting, the space where they were sitting, standing the whole time. But I'm thinking about the data that you got when you asked that first question. Not a hand went up. That can mean a lot of things, right? Some kids need it rephrased. Maybe if you had had longer to let them pause for 5 minutes, somebody would have been like, well, you know, a little bit. But regardless, that idea that a group of young people who were curious, polite, dutiful, writing, obviously you said they were sort of in a gifted and talented track or advanced track, and not a single one of those young people believed that their future, that what lay in their future was something positive, generative, that good lay there. You had said, so I want to just linger on that image of 20 young people, and that a process can help them find their footing. So I just want to underscore how important that is as you share that. You had shared something with me in a previous conversation about your growing concern that more and more young people are simply experiencing anxiety and depression. It wasn't about a particular percentage or compared to kids a year earlier, but it was just this growing, unavoidable sense that young people are both experiencing anxiety and depression in for lots of reasons. But in particular, you were emphasizing that when they think of their future, like that one young person, she or he thinks about their future, or they think about the collective future, they can't see a way to not feel anxiety, depression. So in some respects, you brilliantly set up the implication that a solutionary education, the frameworks, like that can set up the conditions for shifting that relationship with anxiety and depression. So I just want to now be much more explicit. Why do you think young people are experiencing anxiety and depression about their future, knowing that young people have always felt some version of that, right? I mean, lots of reasons. But why do you see it in such strong terms? And let's really give you some runway. How does the work of being a solutionary, the ability to be in a community of other solutionaries, to go deeper and deeper into problems worth exploring based on my passion, based on what I can bring to it, and looking for solutions? There are solutions. How does it not just lead to good outcomes, but allow people to feel different as they go forward, for a young person to not be embodying? So take us anywhere with that, but where does it take you?
So this isn't new, but it's persistent, and I'm seeing it get worse. Now, I don't spend most of my days in schools. So, this year I've spoken to high school students just on 3 separate occasions. But I am seeing this almost wherever I go. But I'm going to tell you when I didn't see it. And by the way, I did loop back. I said that I would return to that question with these same students. And by the end of our time together, and we were only together for an hour, I said, I want you to be honest again. Raise your hands if you feel it's a little more likely now. And now most of their hands went up.
Okay.
And part of that was also sharing with them the ways things have gotten better in my own lifetime. I mean, so many things have gotten better in my own lifetime. Other things have gotten worse, but things can be bad and better at the same time. And so I like to remind them of that. So you asked the question, why do I think this is the way it is with so many young people feeling this way? I think there are a lot of reasons for it. I don't want to speculate on all of them. I'm just going to say it's real. And we know it's real that, kids have, lots of people are studying this and finding growing rates of anxiety and depression among kids. So in 2012, so this is a long time ago, pre-pandemic, like pre-AI, pre-social media, like really long enough ago that we shouldn't have been seeing this. I asked a group of 5th and 6th graders what they thought were the biggest problems in the world. They filled a whiteboard. I asked if they thought we could solve them, and 40 hands, only 5 of the 45 kids, only 5 hands went up. 40 hands did not go up. They could not see our ability to solve this. This was in 2012. 5th and 6th graders. I did before we are done, remind me to share what I did with them to shift that, because I shifted it completely. But it was just a couple years later, I was in Guadalajara, Mexico, where I did the Wonder Walk with a group. And I was invited, I visited a school that was hosting a conference I was speaking at. And when I got to the school, they said, hey, will you talk to our fifth graders? And I wasn't prepared. So I just, thinking about the other fifth graders, I said, raise your hands if you think we can solve the problems in the world. And every hand flew up in the air immediately. So what was different from those kids in Guadalajara and the other kids who were in Connecticut? Well, what wasn't different was the demographics. These were kids, both kids in private schools in both places. But what was different was what was happening in their classroom. The kids in Guadalajara, Mexico had a teacher who was teaching them in age-appropriate ways about problems, and they were solving them. And it was specifically environmental problems, and they were solving them right in their own school. They were establishing a composting system. They were using reusable water bottles to refill rather than getting little disposables. They had put solar panels, not the kids, but the school had with them, decided to put solar panels on, and they were working on other issues in their community. So they understood that problems could be solved because they were learning to be solutionaries. That is the answer. David Orr, who's a professor at Oberlin College, had this great quote that the kids loved it when I shared it with them today too. Hope is a verb with its sleeves rolled up. Hope is a verb with its sleeves rolled up. So much of the hopelessness, the anxiety, and the despair is we are not giving kids the opportunity in school to use the academic skills that they are gaining in service of what they care about, what they see around them. They know about everything in the world. They know about all the problems in the world. In that Connecticut school in 2012, there was a fifth or sixth grader who, when asked what are the biggest problems in the world, said sex trafficking. That was then. Imagine what they know now. And if we don't give them the opportunity to use their literacy and numeracy and scientific skills for a greater purpose than solving a problem in a problem set, then we can't expect them to feel hopeful about the future.
Well, I mean, that David Orr quote is going to stay with anyone that pays attention to this. So I just want to say thank you for that. What an incredible visual image, but also like a heck yeah, like that feels like the work of a place called school. Like that idea of what does it mean to have hope, or to create the conditions so people can hold on to that hope that's within us, right? The ability for a living system to be alive, to be fertile, like, and our own imagination is that. But roll the sleeves up, not just talk about it. So I want to, with the conference, the GLOW Online Summit is bringing educators from around the world together to talk about a lot of different things. And I will tell you, I am tempted to ask you the question about what should school be for? It would be a great sit on a fire and debate what the future of education is. But I want to stay where you've taken us and mention something else that you have shared with me. And that is the idea that we need an alternative from the tendency to debate in a place called classroom. And before, that would have been an interesting kind of perspective. I would have been like, I want to know more about that just as a fellow educator. But given what you've just said, this idea of hope with its sleeves rolled up, allowing kids to really get into the work, right? That mental health and the physical work, and the creative work. So come back to this. Why do you not believe that debate, in whatever way you mean that, should be the sort of core expression of what it means to learn and solve and explore in a place called school? And what would be the replacement? I think I know the direction it's going to go, but why is debate for you some worthy of challenge? And where should we pay attention?
So this came to me in 2009 as a real issue when I was listening to the radio in my car, and sort of ad for an intelligence squared debate held at New York University was going to upcoming. And the debate topic was whether or not the US was responsible for Mexico's drug wars. And I was so startled that experts were going to be brought in to NYU. There was going to be a live audience, and they were going to argue this fabricated question about responsibility for Mexico's drug wars. And then the audience was going to vote for where they stood before the debate. And then after this happened, they were going to vote on who won. And all I kept thinking is, wait, what? Wait, why aren't we bringing experts to talk about how do we solve, whether it's Mexico's drug wars or it's the drug crisis or, kids dying of fentanyl? Why aren't we looking at that? Why are we going to argue at this sort of high level? And yes, when we have debate clubs and debate teams at school, kids learn really great skills. They learn research skills, investigation skills, persuasion skills, critical thinking skills, all these skills. But they can gain those same skills and many more if the goal is, how do we solve that underlying problem? What is the underlying problem? Like, debate topics are structured in a way that it's a binary, but it's a binary on who's right or wrong, as opposed to what are the underlying problems? Why aren't we looking at those? You can see I feel rather passionately about this, because when school becomes a place where we bring ethical thinking, critical thinking, systems thinking, strategic thinking, and creative thinking together for a purpose, like, everybody wins. And even the whole debate framework is that there's going to be a winner and a loser. Don't you want everybody to win? It seems so obvious to me. And I'll tell you one last story in relationship to what we've just been talking about, which is, so as I said, we have teachers around the globe who are learning through our solutionary micro-credential to bring this kind of solutionary framework to their classrooms. And there was a teacher in Chile, and this boy and his classmates, they articulated that they felt that they were going to be the last generation on Earth until they did their solutionary project. And then they all felt differently, like it transformed them. And it made a difference in their community. Like, why wouldn't we want to do that?
Thank you. I'm conscious of time, but I want to bend that boundary just a little bit, because I want to ask you a question which allows you to share the Institute for Humane Education, the programming, the degree, the ways people can be involved or what they can get access to. So it allows you to take us there. So I'm curious, somebody, has a chance to listen to you tonight. Maybe they share it with some colleagues, and there's sort of like this, we want to do something. We want to start somewhere. We want to do more than be curious. Where could somebody begin? Right? So I can name one. They could easily buy the book, share the book. They could just engage in conversation, invite people, whatever it means to do work together. Certainly the website has lots of different resources and links and introductions to, programs, from a degree level down to just like more short term. Where would you recommend, of all the different ways that somebody could go from being curious to being active, where would you recommend that somebody begin? And what would you challenge people to do beyond just learning?
So you pretty much shared
Okay.
all the different things that we have to offer. I mean, we have graduate programs that are online through Antioch University, sort of including a doctoral program, like the very highest level. And you can go and download a free downloadable activity on our website. So, it's soup to nuts what we offer. I think people are different, right? Like, some people maybe they want to listen to other interviews or podcasts, or that's the way they learn best. For other people, they really may want the structure of the micro-credential course, which they can go through with a cohort of other people. And while it costs money, we also, if somebody can't afford it and their school won't pay for it, you're in. Like, we will not prevent anybody who doesn't have the means from taking this course. So it's accessible to everybody. That's why people around the world are doing it. And I would say people need to find what's going to serve them. But the goal is you bring this to your students. That's the goal. So I would just invite people to take the first step, but commit to figuring out how to bring this to their students, because that's where the rubber hits the road, so to speak.
Love it. Love it. Can I ask you a little bit of a personal question before we sign off?
Sure.
I am curious what you are curious about right now, because you live in a world where this is how you engage everything. And it's also a challenging moment in time. And you shepherd and lead an incredible organization, and you're part of so many conversations. And what are you like right now? It's October. It's so seasonal. It's this stage of your life, this stage of your career. What are you curious about? What are you new to at this moment?
That is really hard to answer, because I am curious, like, literally every day for hours every day. Recently, I've been really curious about consciousness and what it really is and how it evolved. Very heady quantum mechanics kind of stuff has been occupying me recently. But I realize I have one other thing to say, which I said, remember to loop me back on this. What did I do for those students who couldn't imagine a better future, and who thought we couldn't solve the problems in the world? So I want to tell everybody what I did, because I did it today with the students who I spoke to. And that is a guided visualization. And it's a guided visualization which I invite the students to imagine that they're very old and approaching the end of a long and well-lived life. And I paint a picture of a world that is really different, right? It's a world with clean air and clean water and species recovering from extinction and nobody going to bed hungry, and where there hasn't been a war in as long as they can remember. And then I invite them to imagine a child coming up, talking to them and asking, how did everything change? And then the child asks a final question, which is, what role did you play in helping to bring about this better world? What did you do? And without fail, that guided visualization has a really profound impact on most people, kids and adults, because they suddenly realize, like, wait, I'm responsible too. I have agency. And when they take that step in their imagination to take responsibility and claim that agency, it transforms how they feel about the potential to create that better future. So anybody who's listening to this, I invite you to sort of imagine you're answering that child's question. What are you going to do? And because I imagine that most people listening to this are educators, you create the future. Your students are your heirs.
So that's incredible. It doesn't surprise me knowing you, but that idea that we're all invited to name the role that we played that made that more ideal future possible. So thank you. Thanks for everything you have done. But thank you for the way that you shared and you guided tonight. Really appreciate you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your beautiful questions and for your beautiful soul. It is just a joy to be with you, Kristen.
Well, likewise. Well, I don't know if it's next time or the time after that, but I would love to get on a trail with you again and experience it.
There's a bed for you here anytime.
I know. I will take you up on it, I promise. Excellent.
Hey, I'm here again, and I just want to thank you for a lovely conversation that is the perfect end cap to the day for me.
Oh,
This is like, I spent most of the day listening to young people from all over the world being solutionaries, basically, um, feeling like they were empowered to take action. And so this is just the encapsulation of all that. So I really, really appreciate that. Zoe, what are you going to talk about at Glow? Is this going to be similar conversation? Can you give us a little bit of a preview of what you're going to do at the conference?
So, aspects of this and going deeper and really diving into that solutionary framework so people can use it. And more of this.
Okay, that sounds good. And Christian, can you tell us a little bit, a little plug for your work and what you're doing these days? You've worn lots of different hats, and which I think is essential to being an educator and a human in this day and age of reinventing yourself. I've been through that the last 5 years, kind of thinking about how to do work that's impactful and make a living. So I'm kind of curious, what have you been up to? I haven't talked to you in a while. So tell us a little bit about Bonfire.
yeah. Short answer is that Bonfire for me is being incredibly curious about how do we create the conditions for us to thrive as we're going that way. So if there is design project work that we're involved in, and there's some sense of creating this ideal future or this innovation or repositioning an organization or a brand, place called school, whatever it might be, what I have long since been curious about is how do we not just wait for that thing to take place, but how do we begin to experience it along the way? And I think what you talked about tonight is just a brilliant example. No matter what that desired outcome is, we have to care about each other and what we experience along the way. So Bonfire really just puts a lot of energy into how do we create the conditions to develop a project that allows us to thrive as we're doing the work, not just if the work is successful. And then on the other side, I lead an organizational initiative called Good Men that does that in the men's work sort of realm. So inviting men to be involved in experiences that are really meaningful and impactful, but so that they can collectively start to put their shoulder behind the needs of everyone else. But it often starts with how do we just invite people to be open and genuine about who they really are, and how not to just get lost in the head and the narrative and the sort of, the story we say, but how do we have experiences so that we can figure out what we're feeling as much as what we're capable of. So that's a little bit about Bonfire, a little bit about Good Men.
It sounds like it's a perfect add-on to solutionary thinking. I mean, it's the adult version of solutionary thinking in some ways, and I think more than ever, adults need this, right? I think post-pandemic, living in the current climate that we're living into, it's not just. I definitely see the teenagers. I have a 23-year-old who has had a lot of mental health issues. I think as a result of what's going on, and so we need to take care of each other, and we need to be more intentional about how we spend our time and how we contribute to our community wherever we are, and bring that back into the forefront of things. I see it right now in Chicago, how communities are coming together to rally around people who are impacted by ICE, for example. Mm-hmm. So we just need more of that. And it's hard to do when you're feeling exhausted and hopeless. So I hope that we can continue these kinds of conversations and give people more hope. And I think Glow is going to be a really hopeful thing for teachers. So I hope people will come and get a taste of this so that they feel more empowered in their individual circumstances. So thank you, everyone, for being here, whether you're in the audience. We had about 10 people in Ring Central events. We had some people watching online. I will send to the people who registered, I'll send some of the resources that were mentioned as a follow-up, and the recording as well. I think some people will probably be watching later. And we'll see you online in November 19th and 20th. And Christian, I hope you'll come in and dive into some of the sessions too. And so Zoe, do you want to kind of take us home and leave us with a closing thought before we stop broadcasting?
Sure. So when I was in college, I was dating a medical student who said to me that he thought that being a physician was the most noble profession. And I was really irritated by the comment. I thought it was silly. Who rates professions based on their nobility? And I was probably defensive because I had gone to college pre-med and abandoned that path. Years later, I found myself thinking about that comment. And I realized that even though it's still silly to rate professions based on their nobility, if pressed to say what I would consider the most noble profession, I would say teaching, because there is no other profession that holds the future in its hands. And if we want a future that is beautiful, restorative, bright, healthy, humane, compassionate, and peaceful, we need teachers more than we need any other professionals to help build that future.
That's beautiful and a perfect
Perfect.
ending.
Perfect.
Thank you again. And we'll leave everyone with that thought. Have a good evening wherever you are, our day, and we'll see you online soon. Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.